Welcome back. Now let's get on to the shadow, which is dishonor. The Akashic Ocean. As we have already heard, the 22nd gene key is very special. There is no getting around this statement. Written into the evolutionary script are certain anomalies and divine cosmic surprises. In this respect, there is no other gene key to rival the 22nd. It is what makes the mythic drama of life so compelling. All great drama has but one pervasive, universal theme, that of redemption. Whether or not a drama ends with redemption, it is always there, as long as a longing inside our human hearts. Whenever we watch or hear a film or story, if there is no redemption at the end, our hearts, we feel cheated. Our minds may appreciate the art, but without a sense of atonement, there is a sense that the great truth has been misrepresented. The 22nd gene key is about the truth of redemption. To those of a strong intellectual bias, it will inevitably seem fantastic or romantic, since it concerns the direct intervention of the divine in the ordinary world. The world that most of us see is not all that exists. We mostly live within the very defined and closed-circuited parameters. Human beings generally have no notion of the great cosmic laws that exist beyond the world of form. One of the greatest of these is the law of divine memory. This law states that all thoughts, feelings, and acts are recorded everywhere within the body of the universe. Science now shows that we live in a vast information field of subatomic particles, some of which are so tiny that they actually pass through matter. This ocean of consciousness exists in many dimensions, and it responds to thoughts, acts, feelings, words, and even intentions. It is a vast quantum field that acts like a great memory bank, holding and recording every impression ever made in the language of the ancients. It is often referred to as the Akashic Record. The 22nd gene key is deeply connected to the law of divine memory. It is like a massive receiving dish that responds to the frequencies, sounds, and vibrations that it hears, and it hears everything. Like a cosmic Aeolian wind harp, reception is determined by the way in which the strings are tuned. In the case of the 22nd shadow, the strings of your DNA are twisted out of harmony, and your behavior is experienced in the world of similarly misshapen. This is the shadow of dishonor. It only exists in the world because most human beings do not realize that all of their acts are recorded. We do not realize that every act, thought, or feeling creates a ripple in the Akashic Ocean, and that each ripple must and will one day return to its point of origin. This 22nd shadow is one of the most powerful emotional shadow gene keys in the human genome. It is highly passionate and sexual, with a huge emotional range encompassing extreme highs of sweetness and extreme lows of violence. Because of its situation in the genome, it is directly or indirectly responsible for most of the relationship problems on our planet. However, before we journey any further into this profound gene key, it should be borne in mind that negative emotions in and of themselves are a natural part of the world in its current state. If they can be usefully transformed or sublimated into art, creativity, or service, their power is awesome. It is a matter of how much responsibility you can take for your own feelings. However, most people in the world today are utterly ruled by their emotions, and whenever you project negative emotional power at another being, you dishonor both yourself and the other person. Many so-called spiritual teachings suggest that you subdue your negative emotion states in favor of sweeter, more virtuous frequencies. In fact, this is the basis of most of the great religions. But to subdue any state or feeling is to dishonor and distrust that feeling, which prevents acceptance. From the point of view of the 22nd gene key, every feeling, mood, or thought you have is put there directly by the source, by God, for you to trust in it. Trusting this process is obviously not the same as acting it out. Trust is a powerful internal process that requires great courage. One of the tricks of the 20-second shadow is to con you into trying to change or fix your moods, rather than allowing them to simply pass through your system naturally. This fact is that you cannot reach higher states of consciousness without first passing through your own suffering. This is the true purpose of the Akashic field and of the 20-second gene key. They invite you to receive your own slice of suffering. If you do not take responsibility for your own thoughts, words, and deeds, the Akashic field simply sends the same forces back towards you again and again. This is the foundation of another of the great universal laws, the law of karma, which we will explore in more depths below. The three pure ones. As we enter deeper into the transmission field of the 20-second gene key and its shadow frequency, we encounter three streams of teachings concerning the nature of suffering, left by the three great world teachers or avatars. These three beings are actually one single being, which divided into three fractal aspects over the course of human evolution. Even though as they were individual people or magi, it is more helpful to see them as three fractal transmissions of the same truth. The first is Hermes Trismegistus, who is also Thoth, whose legacy dates back to the age of Atlantis, whose name, meaning thrice great, directly reflects the triple nature of this transmission. Hermes goes by many names. Oh, I love it. He's right there. Thoth, Merlin, and Fusi, to name a few. The teachings, also Quetzalcoatl, the teachings represented by this fractal is the teaching of alchemy or high magic. All alchemy concerns the transmutation of suffering through alignment with divine will. The second great teacher is Christ, whose fractal represents the transmutation of suffering through the love and sacrifice. Finally, the third great teacher is the Buddha, who fractally represents the transmutation of suffering through wisdom and compassion. Because all of the 64 gene keys are influenced, either directly or indirectly, by the 22nd gene key, these three great fractals and their teachings from the essence of the gene keys revelation form the essence of the gene keys revelation. The synthesis is made up of this great trinity of divine will, love, and wisdom. The Cosmic Mother. Beyond, behind, and between the great masculine trinity lays a fourth transcendent field of consciousness that is born from their interaction. This is the field of the divine Cosmic Mother, whose embrace encircles, protects, and contains all three of the great streams of the masculine avatar consciousness. Within humanity, the only direct portal to this great being is the 22nd gene key. The great Cosmic Mother holds the master key to all suffering and stands behind the teachings themselves. She is the triple mystery of the transformation, although she is beyond teachings. Her way is that of grace through suffering. Those who enter deeply enough into the three great paths through suffering, the alchemical, the sacrificial, and the mindful, will eventually meet the great Cosmic Mother, since she represents the very spirit of grace that brings an end to human suffering. Contrary to the many depictions of the Holy Mother by religion, she is actually a highly ecstatic and sensuous field of energy. I can definitely agree with that. This is another way in which the 22nd shadow dishonors the true nature of the feminine through denying humanity the natural delights of sexual pleasure, aka the movement of one's sexual energy. As suffering comes to an end through her grace, true pleasure will dawn. The Mother is a field whose Shakti, or sexually liberated energy, actually devours your separate self. And as she does so, you experience the highest of divine ecstasies, pouring through your body and aura. This is no staid. I've never heard that word. This is no staid grandmother figure, but a fully laden cosmic breast whose celestial milk will nourish the highest aspects of your/our being. As we explore the 22nd city of grace in more depth, we shall see how all-pervading is this field through creation. Once you come to realize that Hermes, Christ, and Buddha are in fact three aspects of the same Trinity, you will find that these three streams of teachings bring much clarity when fused together. And though Hermes and the Magi, the teachings of alchemy and transmutation, came into the world, Buddha brought the teachings of karma and rebirth, and Christ brought the teachings of forgiveness and atonement. As these transmissions have traveled down the centuries, they have become so distorted and confused that they barely resemble the simplicity of their original transmissions. Over the following pages, we will reunite these three great teachings and the streams of wisdom, exploring the underlying fabric of the subtle worlds and processes that make up the human evolutionary journey. This is a long shadow. The Corpus Christi, the seven sacred bodies of humanity. There have been many systems devoted to the understanding of spiritual or occult science. Those subtle layers of reality beyond the five senses, the great Oriental and Indian systems left us reams of intuitive insight, laid down over thousands of years of direct experience of the higher realms. Towards the end of the 19th century, much of the experience became accessible to the West, and many new streams of thinking converged. Theosophy and anthroposophy and anthroposophy were born in a new area of spiritual science, came into being, leading into the modern New Age, where so many ideas and lineages from the East and West, both mystical and scientific, collided and merged. It is an exciting but also a confusing time as a grand new synthesis emerges from the cosmic soup. One of the enduring insights of mysticism is the notion of the subtle bodies of the human aura. Depending on which system you follow, there are between 6 and 10 major subtle dimensions or planets upon which human beings function. These auric layers collectively make up what is known as the Corpus Christi, or body of Christ. Listed below are the 7 main layers of the human aura and their fundamental properties. The 7 sacred bodies of humanity: physical, astral, mental, causal, Buddhic, atmic, and monadic. Wow, it seems in the shadow aspect we're going through all of these 7 bodies. This is quite a transmission. Oh, stay tuned. We got a lot today. The physical body forms the bedrock of incarnation. On the physical plane, the collective memory of humanity is stored in our DNA. The ultimate goal of human evolution is to merge the physical body completely with the monadic body, thus allowing the former to be assimilated back to its true essence. This corresponds to the 9th initiation, known as the glorification, which is discussed at the end of this gene key. The physical body has a subtle twin counterpart known as the etheric body, around which the science of true health is built. Over time, the physical body more closely reflects the state of your astral body and its emotions. The astral body, which is number 2. The astral body is the layer of the human aura that collects, stores, and transmits all the human emotions and desires from the meanest to the loftiest. In the astral body, pleasure and pain are reflected as vibrational frequencies, which effectively divide the astral plane into hell realms and heaven realms. The astral body is most active during sleep, when it processes your daily urges through your dream life. As the next layer to the physical and etheric body, the astral body also has a huge effect on your health. After death, the astral body is directly confronted with the true nature of every single emotional impulse you had whilst alive in the physical body. Number 3, the mental body. The mental body exists at a higher frequency than your emotions and is constructed from your thinking life. The mental body is greatly influenced by the collective mental body of all humanity. This tends to pull our thinking down into the unfulfilled desires of the astral body. As your thinking turns to higher impulses, the mental body gradually disentangles itself from the astral body and takes on greater power. The mental body can also be used by lower consciousness to repress the natural impulses of the astral body, which can also lead to health problems at all levels. The causal body. Sometimes dubbed the soul, The causal body directly corresponds to the physical body, but at a higher level. It stores the collected goodwill of the human soul as a memory signature written in light. This finely tuned vehicle forms the storage hub for all the higher frequency thought words and deeds that we have initiated during the many journeys in incarnation. After death, the lower of the three bodies disintegrate, and only that which is refined and pure is drawn up and retained in the causal body. The causal body responds to higher visions and archetypes. That's really loud. Like insanely, obnoxiously loud. Okay, we're just gonna wait for that frequency to pass through. Okay. Looks like one of those heavier frequencies is still really looking for attention. There we go. Disintegrate, and only that which is refined and pure is drawn up and retained in the causal body, the causal body. The causal body responds to higher visions and archetypes that lie beyond language, but that can still be conveyed through direct transmission to the lower three planes. As your causal body develops more lucidity, the higher bodies can use it as a means of directing higher and higher frequencies to the lower three bodies. In this respect, the causal body is the bridge between the lower and higher planes. Number 5, the Buddhic body. The Buddhic body is the higher octave of the astral body. As such, it reveals the pure truth of humanity, and all the earth planes are in fact one single organism. Once your awareness is fully anchored in the Buddhic body, the causal body dissolves, and reincarnation in the normal sense is no longer necessary. It is through the Buddhic body that human beings have access to the field of universal love and the higher ecstasies associated with enlightenment. It represents the third feminine realm of the Holy Trinity, that of divine activity. The Atmic body, number 6. As the higher octave to the mental body, the Atmic body allows human beings access to the higher evolutions outside the process of physical incarnation. Whilst the Buddhic body retains its connection to humanity through its compassion, the Atmic body brings awareness into the cosmic field of Christ consciousness, directly merging your awareness with divine mind and heart. The second aspect of the Holy Trinity. It is through the Atmic body that the great avatar streams enter the world. It is also the realm of the cities. This, many miraculous manifestations of the divine. Number 7, the monadic body. Hardly a body in our normal sense of the word. The monad is the unbridled primal essence of divine consciousness itself. It enters the world of form through the causal body, which is the veil it takes on in order to enter the lower worlds, and corresponds to the first aspect of the Holy Trinity, divine will. The monadic body is present within every single atom on all the planes, right down to the physical plane. However, until awareness has risen to the Atmic body, the monadic cannot be fully expressed. When it does express, it condenses the Atmic body and all of the others along with it, revealing true essence as consciousness beyond understanding. At this stage, each of the lower three bodies, physical, astral, and mental, are absorbed into their high-frequency counterparts, the casual, Buddhic, and Atmic, thus revealing the true mystical nature of the Trinity as 3 in 1. Karma and reincarnation. This is such a long one. The programming partner of the 22nd gene key is the 47th gene key, and there is much we can learn from this connection. The 47th gene key concerns the storage of world karma in human DNA. We have seen how the Akashic Ocean records all deeds through the 7 subtle bodies, and how this physical storage takes place through the DNA. It is here in the human genetic code that the world wound is to be found. The combined suffering and negative thoughts, deeds, and words of every human being since the beginning of time are wound up in the non-coding or junk DNA inside your body. Depending on the unique genetic imprinting of your vehicle, certain aspects of your collective karma of humanity are highlighted in your DNA, and these determine your personal karma and the essential script of your life process. All this genetic storage takes place through the 47th gene key. The 22nd gene key, on the other hand, concerns those aspects of our subtle vehicles that survive death. It is vital at this point to realize these higher subtle bodies that are said to survive incarnation are really aspects of the Akashic Ocean itself. They are like memory slates that overlap each other at higher and higher levels of frequency. At the highest levels of the layer, dissolve to real and single field of consciousness. This is why reincarnation is only a relative truth. It is relative to the body in which consciousness happens to be localized. Within the basic understanding, we can begin to understand that one of the great keys to all human suffering, the inability to accept responsibility for our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Life gives us precisely the imprinting we can handle, and if we dishonor ourselves or others, we actually increase our own suffering in the long run. The Bardo state. Many teachings exist from ancient cultures regarding the states of awareness that occur during and after the process of death. These states are often referred to as Bardo states. It is only when we combine the teachings of the Christ and the Buddha that the process becomes simple and clear. At this point of death, your various bodies separate. Your physical body obviously returns to the earth, but your astral and mental bodies, which contain all the feelings and thoughts from your current life, begin an alchemical process of separation and are redefined. Separation and refinement. The negative low-frequency patterns are discarded, whilst the higher frequency patterns are retained and drawn up into the causal body. Because you retained and because you no longer have a physical body, emotions in the bardos after death are experienced more intensely than anything we can possibly imagine. In fact, emotions and thoughts actually assume a life of their own, appearing as entities, angelic or demonic, whose frequencies either cause intense agony and terror or intense joy and ecstasy. Process in the Bardo state is one of pure redemption, in which the subtle aspects of your being meet the consequence of your actions, thoughts, and feelings while you are in form. Every aspect of your shadow consciousness is purged and cleansed. Human intuition recalls enough of the process to integrate it into your various cultural and religious beliefs. However, most human thinking makes a fundamental error here between the concept of retribution and redemption. At the shadow consciousness, humans do not see the true operation of grace through Christ's teachings of forgiveness. We do, indeed, atone for our sins in the afterlife, but only in order that we can be given a clean slate before our causal body returns once again. Because there is no defined sense of linear time in the Bardo state, it can indeed seem that our hell is eternal, just as it can seem that our heaven is eternal. The 22nd gene key thus allows your causal body to become brighter and clearer from incarnation to incarnation as you learn from your own suffering, both in form and out of form. At the shadow frequency, this process teaches you to accept your slice of group karma and offers you the opportunity to transmute it. This is what the Christ consciousness really is. It lies inside every single human being. We are forgiven over and over again, and the deeper we accept this grace, the more powerful the impulse for goodness becomes. When we are in form, eventually our causal body becomes so resplendent that higher consciousness reaches down through it into the lower bodies, the mental, astral, and physical bodies, and begins to impact them powerfully. Our thoughts turn more to the source. Our emotions and desires become sacrificed for a higher cause, and eventually even our physical body becomes radiant as the various states layered over it becomes transparent. As the various states layered over it becomes transparent. Instant karma. In light of the above, karma can perhaps be understood in a new and beautiful way. Individual karma does not travel beyond a single lifetime, even though it does pass into the human collective. Every negative act is recorded for future processing in the bardos, and it is stamped into the collective DNA of humanity, where it must eventually be redressed. Our karma at this level is shared, since humanity is really one entity. Contrary to certain popular beliefs, the conditions of your external physical life do not reflect your actions in past incarnations. The level of transparency of your causal body attracts the incarnative environment it needs to further its own evolution. Whether those conditions are seen as good or bad, at the higher levels of transparency, the causal body will often take on greater transparency. The causal body will often take on greater suffering because there is greater compassion manifesting through its vehicle. This evolutionary incarnative process follows a specific archetype sequence known as the 9 initiations, which we will explore at the end of this gene key. I'm going to do a little interjection here. I find it really interesting how it's talking about essentially the evolution of the soul, and how it's talking about it in such a way as though it is a fundamental operation mechanic. Now, if you remember a number of gene keys ago, there is an expression that pretty much states that evolution doesn't exist, nothing can evolve, and that all awareness and all energy is actually essentially in an unmoving state or ungrowing state. And so it is only the state of separation that allows us to actually believe that there is some kind of growth, change, or evolution. So I find there's information in this particular gene key that actually contradicts the very work itself, which is something that I also feel that the work has pointed to, and that I share sometimes. As a good friend told me one day, it's what's actually happening isn't this or that, it's this and that. And so in our dualism, everything is a contradicting pole, but those become like a centrifugal reference point as we go into the 4th and 5th dimensions. This is meaning that all these different poles, it's not about being one or the other or this or that. It's about recognizing that all colors in the palette are consistently available. And as our language changes, especially this English language, which is a highly objective format and only brings our awareness to vocally essentially trap things into a kind of vibrational matter or container. And so the very nature of our speech at this point, the speech recognition syntax kind of modeling, is also an objective format. And so it doesn't really allow for the natural form, the natural state of how energy exists in its own right. We have this fundamental identity that attempts to transform things from the outside of us to make it relevant to our own personal identity, and then we understand it, this kind of thing. But that itself is a larger separation agreement. So this is what it is. This is the sharing I felt to offer in this now, and let's get back to it. There's a lot of talk today, a little more than I was imagining was going to occur. That being said, what I said may or may not blend right in. Take it as you will. It's not necessarily meant to be a teaching here, but it's what came up for me around reading this here with you now. Okay. Even though karma is purified in the after-death state, it can manifest during a single lifetime. The law of cause and effect holds true on the material plane, too. However, the material plane is extremely dense, which means that we do not always see the results of our good or bad actions, thoughts, or words quickly. Having said this, we are now living in a time towards the end of a great epoch, and at such times natural laws are often seen to bend. The general collective consciousness of humanity has been gathering in the Akashic Ocean for millennia, and as such it has effectively programmed the way in which the ocean functions. As our consciousness evolves more quickly, the turnaround for the law of divine memory is altering. In other words, karma is speeding up. Soon we will reach a point in evolution where redemption will manifest even on the physical plane. This is the epoch that is coming. Time of healing the sacred wound that causes humans to suffer. This last point ought to give us all something to think about regarding the way in which we handle our own emotions and thoughts. Soon, none of us will be able to hide the truth of our acts, our feelings, in the not too distant future. The 22nd shadow will create almost instantaneous karma whenever someone behaves dishonorably. This will utterly change the way we see ourselves and the world around us. Justice is universal law. However, human beings at lower frequencies too often misinterpret this beautiful law as retribution or revenge. Because of grace, evolution cannot travel backwards, and it is not possible for form to devolve. It is all a matter of how finely tuned are the strings of your DNA. If you tune them to the lower frequencies, not only will you prevent yourself from experiencing joyousness, but you will also add to the weight of human karma, stored in our collective ancestral DNA. In this sense, all human beings are given the feeling of free will in order to experience the consequence of their own deeds. But the key point here is that we do not learn through punishment and retribution as so many religions would have us believe. We learn through joyousness and fulfillment, which comes through the 22nd gift, the wonderful gift of graciousness. The repressive nature, proper. Oh, we're getting to a repressive nature here. The 22nd shadow and its repressive phases gives rise to a deeply false sense of character. These people may appear outwardly very balanced, calm, and proper. They can often be extremely socially adept. Inwardly, however, their emotions are often seething. They can hide a deep sexual lust and often foster a deep hatred and resentments. A good archetype of property is the Victorian age in Great Britain. On the surface, the general culture was one of politeness and control, when in fact, it concealed an underworld of repressed passion, sexuality, and aggression. All the repressive shadows are rooted in a deep-seated fear. The fear of the 22nd shadow is the fear of losing control. We should remember that no shadow in itself is bad. It matters how we deal with it. If you have a repressed nature, you can use it positively to transform inward negativity, rather than letting it stew until it erupts. However, if there is no sense of virtue in these people, this shadow can conceal the most violent and explosive of natures. The reactive nature, inappropriate. The reactive version of the 22nd shadow manifests as inappropriate or antisocial behavior. These people cannot control their emotional reactions. They often lead fairly disreputable but passionate lives. Wearing their hearts on their sleeves, their actions and behavior are usually destructive, initially more towards others than themselves. Even in its shadow, this archetype has such creative power that these people can produce wonderful art or music. But so often their inability to handle their own passions and treat others without respect leaves their private lives in tatters. Above all, these people have an inability to listen, either to others or to themselves. Thus, even when their intentions are good, they are doomed to be mistimed and misunderstood. Well, how about that? That brings us to the end of the shadow of the 22nd gene key, which is the 45th harmonic, which is the final or fifth harmonic in the 9th harmonic run, our throat chakra. Stay tuned for the gift.